Big story this week. Well, we have Tim Kennedy coming up next. Gosh, Tim Kennedy, what a show.
You're not plugged in.
I'm not plugged in? What do you mean I'm not
plugged in?
What are you talking about?
I'm not plugged in.
I'm plugged into the wrong
by
thing?
By not plugged in, I mean I didn't have it turned on.
You didn't have the soundboard ready?
Yeah, but it's your fault.
Well,
it's your fault.
Tim Kennedy coming up next. For people who don't know, famous UFC fighter, noted conservative, and special forces. Bright guy. Not a guy you want to anger. So it's good that we do this from a distance.
It's true. It's true. He's not. I told him this on Twitter once. He's the last guy I want to meet. Dark Alley.
Yes.
At least not on his side.
Right. If you're a terrorist, he's probably the last guy you want to meet.
Well, I don't want to disclose all my
No, you don't want to disclose all
activities,
of your affiliations.
But
there are a few prayer mats in your closet somewhere.
yeah, this brews don't come from nothing.
Right. Back to me. So, Mark Zuckerberg, arrogant wiener face / founder of Facebook. Guy's also a censorship maniac. When he's
Is he just trying to keep up with Tim Cook? Is that his deal with like Islam and stuff?
I don't. What did Tim Cook say something recently?
Not recently. He's always saying something mostly
Steve
arrogant.
Jobs
stupid.
was pretty ignorant on that as well.
Oh, it's true. I mean, he ate nothing but what, vegetables and stuff.
No, it's a fruit. Fruitarian.
Fruitarian.
Fruitarian is where you, for a while anyway. Fruitarian, for those of you who don't know, is when you don't even eat vegetables. You only eat fruit that has fallen from the tree because the tree has willingly given you its fruit in order to spread its seed, and that's the only way to live harmoniously with
This is
nature.
the genius that produced the iPhone.
Yes. It's also the kind of crazy that has Freud shuffling papers in his grave, saying, "I don't even have a fill-out sheet for this." So the Facebook founder said atrocities in Belgium, Pakistan, and Turkey were all designed to sow seeds of hatred between different communities. Mark Zuckerberg said each of these attackers were carried out with a goal to spread fear and distrust and turn members of a community against each other. The only sustainable way to fight back, he said, against the sickening attacks is to create a world where everyone feels cared for and loved. Well, I guess Mark Zuckerberg...
I am moved.
He has watched a lot of Care Bears. Yeah, you know what?
Long sigh.
Fighting terrorists with hugs.
60% of the time, it works every time.
This is proof, okay? This is proof. This is a case study in the fact that someone can be brilliant in one area and completely inept in another. So if someone says, hey, I'm a Harvard lawyer, great. It doesn't mean you want him building your planes. If Mark Zuckerberg is brilliant, probably one of the most influential people of the last century, absolutely, doesn't mean he knows anything about foreign policy. Now, something else, this is a guy who has attended censorship summits. This is a guy who has openly supported removing people from Facebook who have dissenting viewpoints, be it on the refugee situation, be it on far leftism, or if they believe in the Second Amendment. So it's important to note that this is his worldview. He's going to try and create a world where people feel loved. Let me tell you something, Mark. I could be wrong. I always leave that on the table, the possibility that I'm wrong. I don't think I am here. I don't think that ISIS would straighten up and fly right because you sent them a pajamagram. I don't think that terrorists are going to change their way of thinking if you're nice enough. By the way, Zuckerberg, they'd probably go to town on you a little bit longer because of your last name. Don't forget that. They're not going to make it quick and painless for Zuckerberg. Okay? If ISIS, if any of these people, if they capture someone with a Berg or a Steen or Shapiro, they've hit the jackpot. And they're going to make that last, and they're going to videotape it. These are not people who are fighting over economics. These are not people who are fighting over land. These are people who are fighting because you don't submit to their religion. That's the only reason. It's their only stated reason. It's why there will never be peace between Israel and Hamas. Hamas does not want land. Hamas wants the Jews gone. That's a part of their charter. That's a big thing. I know a lot of people who are new to conservatism, it's popular to hate the Jews, and so you throw Israel under the bus. It's silly. It's very unintelligent. It's not a war, for example, like, like France and England, right? It's not like that. Hamas and Israel, they're tunneling in. They don't care if they reach a military base or innocent civilians. Any Jew will do. That's the same mindset of ISIS. They don't care how nice you are. And this is a problem, too. I mean, you want proof of this? The fact that attacks even occurred in Belgium or France or Pakistan. The argument used to be, well, it's only because the United States has been going in there and invading, and this is a retaliatory action. Belgium? France? These aren't bastions of far right-wing neocons. These are the tolerant, democratic socialists, to use Bernie's term, utopias, to whom the left has been pointing for decades of how the United States is supposed to be. And they got attacked. France twice. More frequently. As a matter of fact, Europe is far more prone to terrorist attacks than the United States. Are you arguing that Europe is less tolerant? They did what you wanted, Mark Zuckerberg. You had a meeting with Merkel, Prime Minister of Germany, and you said into a live microphone, Zuckerberg said into a live microphone that, yeah, listen, we'll make sure that these anti-Syrian refugee stuff, we'll make sure to prune that from Facebook. And a live microphone said we're going to remove this. We're only going to keep one point of view in people's newsfeed. Well, guess what? More refugees in Germany. Also, a lot more rape, violence, terrorism, economic problems. The citizens aren't happy. Now you have a rise of a far right-wing nationalist movement. It's just so silly. These are people who don't live in reality. Again, that goes back to the worldview of federalism, constitutionalism, conservatism, free enterprise versus socialism, centralized power. At some point, you have to account for human nature. At some point, you have to accept, do you believe that evil exists? I do. And I would file ISIS under that column. I could be an ignorant American / Canadian, depending on how mad you are at me that day, but I think it stands to reason. Tim Kennedy next.
We do. He is there.
He is there.
Ready.
Okay, let me introduce him. Don't say anything. Next
He's the
guest.
man.
Don't say anything. This next guest, of course, UFC fighter, former Special Forces. He's been on, I think, History Channel. The
History
show?
Channel, Hunting Hitler.
Hunting Hitler.
Great show.
And he has a penis. He's a man.
Bonafide badass.
Well, you have to. I believe his preferred gender pronouns are masculine. Tim Kennedy, are you with us, sir?
Yes, I am.
Oh, good Lord. Look at that. He has the full Count of Monte Cristo going on now.
Yeah.
He's got, for those who are listening terrestrially, he has a full beard and face thing going on. I don't know how I feel about it.
Well, I think it signifies the anti-establishment a little bit, you know? It's kind of, I want to blow up Parliament, but still, I'm here to party.
Yeah, well, okay. But I also like to party. Remember, the 4th of November. Was it 4th of November?
5th of November.
5th of November. I don't know.
Gosh.
I thought it was a crappy film.
It was so far. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's pretty good, actually.
No, I don't know. Well, we're talking about V for Vendetta. So Tim Kennedy is back. Gosh, Tim Kennedy. Okay, there's a lot going on right now, and you've talked a lot on Twitter, and you get a lot of flack. You've sort of waded into politics more. You're big on the problem with the emasculization of the United States, and I think that you have a leg to stand on with that. Why do you think it's important? And I know, listen, you're an intellectual too. People are going to think, well, he wants all guys to fight. No, that's not it. And so I want to give you the floor.
Yeah, I think it's just like the current state of where we are as a society has become more and more pathetic. We've lost sight of who we were, where we came from, and how we could continue to be the most successful and powerful nation on the planet.
Right.
That will not exist when we have safe zones and trigger words and.
I love how out of touch he is that he has them it's safe spaces and trigger warnings. And you triggered me by not even getting it correct. This is off to a horrible start.
And so you're like, wow.
Jeez, words matter, Tim.
I'm actually glad I don't have it right. I think it would be.
I know.
That's a testament to how.
That's what my dad will do. He'll deliberately say Justin Bieber or something just because he wants to disassociate himself with such horrendous human activity. But I mean, it is pretty incredible. And we were just talking about this. Did you see the mandatory sensitivity training now coming to the Marines?
No, I missed that entirely.
Well, basically, it's mandatory, HR training where you can't see people, you can't see race or gender, any of those things. But of course, the PT requirements have to be lowered so women can be on the front lines. So I think like on campus we expect it, but now it's seeping into the military. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely. From Ranger School to Special Forces, ODAs, Civil Affairs, Psych Ops, like all of these different, what were very specialized units are now going to have to not try to make it happen. They're going to have to figure out how to accommodate women coming into those units. Now,
Right.
I'm 100% for women in combat. I'm all about it.
I'm not.
You're not?
No.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm okay disagreeing with you. I think that'd be
How
a
dare
major
you? This is my show. You come in my house and you talk this kind of trash? Who is taking care of the booking these days? All right, fine. Go ahead.
It just can't be done by lowering standards. You said it. Like they're coming to the Marines, but they're going to lower standards.
Oh, okay. So that's a roundabout way of saying no, because there are not many women. You'd have very few women who can meet those standards. That's why
Yeah,
they
but
lowered
if they
them.
can, then they deserve to be there.
That's true. Although we did have someone who was a sergeant in the Marines, Sergeant Catherine Kamon, and she is very much against it. She said because it would change the dynamic in mixed squads. She said men would inherently feel more protective of them. They would treat them in a way they wouldn't treat men. This was a woman who said this, which was honestly something I hadn't even thought of before beyond the physical.
And she's absolutely correct. It would change the chemistry of any unit, any platoon, any squad, any ODA. But I don't know if that's going to be for the worse, and we're not going to know until it's done. We know that's been successfully done in Israel, for instance, and their combat units that have mixed gender are very efficient. So
Okay. Well, maybe you're right. I don't know. I have no idea. It's different across Israel. We did have a study up there. We talked with Mark Repito where it did show that the mixed squads were definitively less efficient.
successful.
Yeah, less successful. But, listen, I don't hold it against them because they smell better and they look better. And you don't hate women. You married one.
I did. Yeah, I like them.
That's the takeaway for today's show. Okay, so you tweeted out, think of who could be president this time next year, and then consider killing yourself. And people got mad. Now, who are you talking about? Because I obviously you don't like the left, but last time you were on, I think you said you weren't really thrilled with anyone in the Republican Party either.
Yeah, no. I was talking about, so let's just take the number one and number two. We have Trump and Hillary. So while we have an egotistical, narcissistic, possibly pretty corrupt business guy, and then I think to be a felon, a criminal, borderline on lying murderer as a Secretary of State, as our other option. Those are our two options. So,
well, I don't know that. It seems this week that Trump may not get the nomination.
Yeah, which would mean what? That we're going to give it to Ted Cruz?
Yeah, it seems like that. Between the two, do you have a pick?
No, I don't like either. No.
Well, okay. Well, why don't you like? We obviously know you don't like Donald Trump, but why don't you like Ted? Who was your person in this race? I guess was it Rand Paul?
Yeah, I mean, although Rand Paul's foreign policy was a disaster, he and his father just seemed to not understand that the kind of one significant thing that the government needs to do is have a strong deterrent presence in the military, and they're like, oh no, we'll just shrink everything to include all forms of government, including the military. That's bad plan.
Right, bad plan. Okay, so who was your person then?
Of our current options?
No, of in the whole primary. I mean, there were like 42 people. See, this isn't fair. You can't just say you don't like them and not pick anybody.
I don't like any of them. I'll take Brian Stan, Nick Palmisano. I'll take.
Well, Brian Stan liked Jeb, and he came out and he got a lot of flack because he doesn't like Trump.
Yeah, I don't like Jeb.
No. All right, so you don't like Trump or Hillary. It's possible that it comes down to Bernie versus Cruz. I mean, these are possibilities. The likelihood is Hillary, Trump, but this week has been a rough week for Trump. So what is that? So what do you think of the Republican Party then? You're someone who's been in the military. You're someone who's been politically outspoken. If you're at this point, is it beyond repair?
No, it's not beyond. Well, first, I hate the two-party system. So the fact that we have to limit this to the Republican or Democratic Party is asinine. I think that if everybody kind of understood what a libertarian is, we'd have like an entire third party, but everybody has no idea of how to categorize themselves, so they just end up saying I'm one of those two horrible options that have two horrible nominations.
Right.
So
the problem with that, though, is I mean, I understand it, but the two-party system is closer to perfect than like a parliamentary system. And I say that because in Canada, you can have a guy who wins with 30% of the vote. And that's kind of why we have the Electoral College, right? Trump has that ceiling of 30%. And some people would argue, you know, brokered convention, contested convention, there's some murky rules there. But some people can argue, well, a guy who doesn't get over that 30% hump, should he really represent the whole Republican Party just because it's been fractured? So the two-party system isn't good, but if you kind of see what's happened with the Republican primaries, how no one can even get half the vote, that's what happens in a system with more than two parties in a general. So that's not good either.
You know, scary. You know, we're
I'm just depressing you. I'm depressing Tim Kennedy.
Yeah, it's 2016, and we're moving very quickly to the nominee, and we are in a disarray. And you know what would be a horrible idea is at the convention they're like, you know what, Ted Cruz he's too conservative, he's too libertarian, he's too Tea Party-ish. So we're not even going to give him the nomination. We're going to go with like a Paul Ryan or somebody else that's even more establishment, just because they're going to play by the rules. And now
I don't think they can do that now. I don't think there's any way they can do it. I don't think they will.
I think they could do whatever they want. They're playing their own instruments. You know, they're dictating how this entire race is going.
Well, not right now. That's why they're rushing. That's why they're scrambling and all hands on deck. You know, with the fire department with Trump and Cruz. I mean, they absolutely hate Cruz, and then they just. Trump is too much of a wild card, so they don't know what to do. But I think at this point they realize the Republican Party has no chance if it's anyone other than those two. But you may be right. They may be so out of touch, they bring out Paul Ryan with his P90X shorts. You know, listen, he's got... You ever see that picture?
Yeah, it's special. I'm not going to throw stones at wearing dudes that wear short shorts because I wear short shorts. I'm wearing short shorts right now.
Well, that's fine. But yeah, but you've earned the right. Oh, gosh, those aren't shorts. Those aren't. I don't think those qualify as shorts.
Yeah, they're Ranger panties. They definitely.
Your
qualify.
wife is missing some clothing. No doubt.
Yeah, you're not supposed to panty raid your wife, Tim. That's not how it works. It happens in college dorms. So yeah, I don't. If they bring out Paul Ryan, listen, I'll urinate on the ashes of the GOP. I've talked about that. I don't hate Paul Ryan, but that would be a real slap in the face.
So Donald Trump doesn't get the nomination. They give it to Ted Cruz.
Well, they don't give it. Here's what I think the only fair way is if no one has the delegates at that point. And you tell me if you think I'm off base here. If no one has the delegates needed at that point, they say, okay, let's take it to a head-to-head. Naturally, that's Trump versus Cruz. And then at that point, when it's just Trump and Cruz, all the delegates can be repledged because they're no longer going to Rubio, Kasich, whoever else. And you pick in the head-to-head who wins between the two of those. I think that's the only fair way if someone doesn't have the delegates by the time we get there. Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah.
Okay. So if they did that and it ended up being Cruz, would you vote for him?
Then, yes.
Okay. If it ended up being Trump, would you vote for him?
Yes. Well, that's
Pause.
if Hillary is the other nomination, because I hate her.
What if it's Bernie?
If it was Bernie Sanders, the thought that I would vote for a socialist. Well, if it was Bernie versus Hillary, I'd vote for Bernie. Think about that for a second.
I don't want to. Why would you force my mind to go to such a dark place? This is entirely unnecessary on this program. Bernie versus Hillary? I tell you what, though, people have really underestimated him. People aren't afraid of socialism anymore. And they say this a lot, and you touched on this earlier. We did a video on this, just released today. Leftists say, well, you think you don't like socialism? Well, the military, that's socialism. It's so asinine because, as you said, there's a legitimate role for government. And is there any more legitimate role in the military?
No.
I'm trying to think. I can't think of any. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe more military? I'm not entirely sure. Okay, let's switch it. Hey, when are you going to get a fight in the UFC? For those listening, he's a UFC fighter.
When am I going to get a fight?
Yeah, when are you going to fight in the UFC next?
Oh, so I got back and available for a fight like a month ago. I had a deployment, a special forces thing. You also introduced me as a former Green Beret. I don't even know what that means. That former
I didn't say Green Beret. I said Special Forces because I didn't want to get it wrong.
Okay, that former part, never say again. I will climb through the screen.
That looked like the cover to a horror VHS. It's just a beard and an eye.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
sorry.
I
Current Special Forces.
Available for a fight, April, May, June. Give me anything.
So you do want to fight?
No. Well, I asked Anderson Silva. I asked for Vitor Belfort. I asked for Gegard Mousasi. So I'm ranked now 7 because Michael Bisping got ranked above me. And though even Anderson Silva came in and lost to Michael Bisping, they are now both ranked ahead of me.
Well, it's a weird ranking. We'll talk about that more when we come back. And there was something else we were going to talk about. But Tim Kennedy, after this, music you hear, then commercial, and then more Tim Kennedy in Short Shorts. Louder with Crowder. Stay tuned. I'm hearing an echo. We are back. Sorry for those watching the video live stream. Apparently it went down. We had some problems. We are back with current Special Forces. I don't know what you call him. I don't want a Special Forces guy, UFC fighter, host of, was it Killing Hitler?
Hunting Hitler.
Hunting Hitler, Tim Kennedy. I got that so wrong. Tim, sorry about that.
That's right. Hunting Hitler or Killing Hitler would have been a way better show, and I would have enjoyed it more.
Well, I think Bill O'Reilly has a lockdown on killing anything. He just needs the next book. So I think Killing Hitler is the cue. It's going to be killing Kennedy, killing O'Reilly is going to be in there at some point. That's when he wants to do the Andy Kaufman. So, okay, you're talking about the fighting, UFC fights. For a lot of people out there don't necessarily follow this. Yeah, I know you're ranked now behind Bisping and Silva. And you beat the brakes off Bisping, to be fair, but I'm sure you can accept that some of that is due to inactivity.
Yeah, absolutely. Except that how anybody could think I would lose to Michael Bisping now, even though I've already beaten him, and I've gotten better, or to Anderson Silva, who stylistically I would be the worst matchup, I think, in the entire division for him. So,
I don't think rankings are based on that, though. Just as far as the numbers.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they are. I think it's just number. There's, it's an algorithmic thing. I think if you got in there and mixed it up with just a couple of people, you'd probably right at the top if you fought either of them. But they're not. The UFC is not willing to offer you either of those fights.
No. Yeah, no. They're gonna wait until I know I have another TV show or something else, and then they're gonna offer me a fight, and I'm gonna be in like Brazil or Africa or something, or they know I have a deployment coming up, and then they'll offer me a fight against like a friend of mine or something like that.
Have they offered you any low-level fights, like fights that wouldn't make sense, or have there just been no offers?
No, the only fight that I had was against a friend of mine who's ranked way below me. And it's like the only guy in the entire division that has been a teammate for the past 6 years.
Because you don't have many friends.
Yeah, no.
Well, now you just trash these half the rankings, but I think you would do pretty well in any of those fights. And yeah, you've got a really interesting division right now. I wanted to talk with you about this. I think this kind of ties into a macro we've been talking about. Freedom of the press. The UFC is an entertainment organization. But have you been following the firing of Ariel Helwani there from Fox?
No.
Oh, you didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, he was fired.
For what?
Well, he said he was very classy about it. For those of you who don't know, he's basically the Howard Cosell of MMA. Ariel Helwani, I actually know him because, funny enough, I met him at a jiu-jitsu gym when I was living in New York, and he came in. And at this point, no one knew who he was. You're Ariel Helwani. He's been covering mixed martial arts, this sport, for a long time. A lot of you would be surprised at how reasonable he is with politics, too, coming from Montreal. And he covered the UFC back when nobody did. He has the biggest MMA program, and he worked on Fox for a while. Well, the rumors were, and he didn't shut them down, he was very diplomatic about it, was that as some fighters are leaving the UFC right now, and he was covering like Rory McDonald and Benson Anderson, the free agency. And he did say Fox called him with a 2-minute phone call and said, "You're gone." So he's gone. He's not covering any UFC events now under the Fox contract. How did you not know this? This happened like last week.
I have been. Have you seen my Instagram or anything in the past couple of weeks?
I haven't, because I want to avoid the pictures of the short shorts.
Okay. There are no pictures of short shorts, but I've pretty much been either in the woods or on the side of a helicopter.
Okay.
So I've been kind of disconnected, and when I get Wi-Fi, I'll send my wife a photo and be like, "Hey, throw this on a social media of some form." So yeah, I've been out entirely. I'll just.
Well, just hearing that at your first guttural reaction, I mean, what do you think about that? You've had a good relationship with Ariel, right? It's been fine?
No. We actually started very caustic. He and I were, I wouldn't say like enemies, but I hated him. He asked very pointed, direct questions like a good journalist should, and he would try to not get a catch out of you, but...
He likes to stir the pot.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And I was cutting weight one time, and I was just being a dick.
Yeah.
And I was a dick to him, and then that's what I remembered. So for like a year, I was like, dude, I hate this dude. And over the course of like the past 4 years, just watching him and reading him and seeing how he is as a journalist, I had what ended up being like a profound.
Did you apologize?
I did. Okay. I apologized profusely.
You did the opposite of the Trump. You were willing to apologize.
Yeah. So I apologized. Actually wrote him as well, and I said, "Man, listen, I was so far off base, and I'm very sorry. You're a kick-ass journalist, and please forgive me." So now we're good.
Was he gracious?
What?
Was he gracious about it?
Yeah. Dude, he's such a classy dude. One, it sucks when you realize that you're completely wrong and you're an asshole, like I was. But now I'm not looking at him through rose-colored lenses. I think I have an objective perspective about him as a journalist.
Yeah.
And he is one hell of a journalist.
He's very
honest.
good.
Yes, he really is, which is rare in the sport.
Yeah, it's tough because you get your credentials denied, and a lot of people used to say he was a UFC shill, but he's been very fair in his coverage, and he hasn't thrown anybody under the bus. But I thought you might have some opinions on that because of, like you said, the journalism in MMA is very controlled, and it's a private organization. They have the right to do that, unlike the National Football League. It's not really a sports organization; it's an entertainment organization. But Go ahead.
This isn't anything new. If you go to look at Loretta Hunt, who writes for ESPN,
right?
She wrote a negative article about.
Careful on repeating what the president said. This is FCC monitored.
Yeah. So she said something not nice, and she got excluded from any future UFC events. So right. for the company that she worked for, that was pretty much a requirement because she was covering the UFC. So now she's excommunicated or ostracized from the MMA community. Jeremy Botter, another example of that. That just happened recently. So now he's over at Flow Sports. He's going to be doing amazing things for wrestling and jiu-jitsu and all other combat kind of sports.
Right.
But Ariel Helwani, to me, that's like the icing on the cake. That is that final candle.
He is, well, the thing is, it's changed now. Whereas he might have been voiceless once, now he has far more reach than a lot of traditional media, and I think that's a big mistake. Same thing in the elections. Traditional media, they've overestimated their power, and we're seeing that tip. I wanted to wrap it up because we have to let you go, Tim Kennedy. Best place for people to find you, real quick.